Wow, what a great clip that's going to be.
Imagine this. You are a public servant. You are someone who has made the decision to come and help your country. I made this decision. I personally made this decision as a member of the Canadian Foreign Service. You swear that you will act in your best capacity possible for the best interest of this country. Now imagine that the worst situation for your nation occurs since wartime, a pandemic, and you are forced to make the best decisions possible that you can in your position for your nation with the information that you have. You do your best. You navigate the system, but things go wrong. The application that you are working on ends up to be a $54 million boondoggle, a stain on the government, which is already neck deep in boondoggles. Another instance of possibly unethical behavior by this government, and certainly incompetent behavior by this government, and a definite lack of oversight. But you tried your best because you were a public servant. The stress of the investigation of this $54 million boondoggle gets to you. So you go on medical leave and you think things can't possibly get worse. But they do get worse, and they got worse for Cameron McDonald, who was a director general at CBSA, and Antonio Utano, who was an ADM at the Canada Border Services Agency. Things got worse for them after coming here, giving what they believed was truthful testimony, their heartfelt testimony, to speak truth to power, to speak truth to Canadians, when they were suspended. But not only suspended without pay. And for what reason? They claimed that they were misled by senior CBSA officials. They were intimidated, that this was retaliation, that this was an attempt to muzzle them, that this was the CBSA's opportunity to use them as a scapegoat. There were no allegations, no details, no evidence. What they did receive were threats that decisions would be made if they were not compliant. So, Ms. O'Gorman, I'm here to ask you today, on behalf of Mr. McDonald, on behalf of Mr. Utano, on behalf of public servants everywhere, on behalf of Canadians, why were Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano suspended without pay?
CBSA is conducting an internal investigation. Neither of those individuals work for the CBSA right now.
Believe anything that you say today, these canned speaking notes, when both Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano have stated that they were misled by senior CBSA officials as to who even chose ArriveCAN. This committee has found you not having spoken the truth before to this committee before. There's no reason we should believe this. Can you tell the committee then, what evidence do you have of Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano for their suspension? Can you share with that, please? What evidence do you have for this committee?
I'm not using speaking points, and I don't believe I've been informed of not having told the truth to this committee. I did not take those actions. They don't work for me.
Well, we would like to know what evidence you had. That was my question. As well, their legal fees were being paid until this point of their suspension, and now they're no longer being paid. Why did you suspend paying their legal fees?
So the preliminary statements of fact were provided to their deputy heads, and I took decisions that are consistent with the Treasury Board policy on legal fees.
Yeah, this information isn't providing any new information to us, Ms. O'Gorman. Is this the type of treatment that CBSA whistleblowers can expect in the future? Is this the type of treatment that public servants can expect in the future? The CBSA was also made to know of threats against Mr. McDonald by Mr. Doan. What steps, then, can you tell us, did you take to protect Mr. McDonald from facing negative reprisals from higher-ups, please?
I heard that testimony here. There are processes and systems in place when somebody believes they've been subject to harassment. I'm trying to conclude an investigation. My interest is understanding what happened. I don't understand.
To speak the truth to people here today. Just tell Canadians, why were they suspended without pay? Share that with everyone.
I did not take that action, and it's not for me to talk about. Their deputy heads
Mr.
took that
Ozowski,
action.
There are accusations that the public safety minister at the time was wanting someone's head on a plate. How involved was that current minister in the building of ArriveCan? And how involved was that minister's office in covering up the misconduct connected to the development of the ArriveCan app?
Comments occurred after I retired.
I can speak. I can speak to that.
Please go ahead, Ms. Hooperman.
The Minister of Public Safety was informed by me that we were launching an investigation. He expressed concern over the nature of the allegations, and he indicated that he expected me to deal with any gaps that they showed and to go forward with the investigation and to let him know if there were any pertinent information that he should be aware of. He never said that he was looking for anybody's head on a platter.
Well, we were also advised.
I apologize. That is our time, Mrs.
Thank you.
Kusi.
In the emails that you've sent us this week, I saw many meetings, either weekly or biweekly, that took places in bars, that were in breweries, and those were maybe meetings that lasting an hour, hour and a half. Is this usual? Is this recommended? Is it efficient? I mean, I'm sorry, but having a meeting in a brewery, I don't drink beer myself, but come on. 3 things on this. First of all, as I've said, the perception on conflict of interest matters. If I receive many requests, I mean, the investigation is underway. I don't know if the people in question were there, but the presence itself of such invitations with vendors, where there's no proof that there was an employee from our side, is something that concerns me. I have questions about this.
Ms. O'Gorman, your responses to the questions put to you by my colleague, Ms. Kusi, as to why both Mr. McDonald, who was a Director General of the CBSA, and Mr. Antonio Utano, who was a Vice President of the CBSA, as to why they were suspended without pay. I find your responses to be lacking in clarity. Clearly you know a lot more. We're going to ask you questions about that because Canadians deserve a full, frank answer as to why both of these senior civil servants have been treated in the fashion that they have. And these are extremely unusual circumstances, so much so that the report put forth by Bill Curry in the Globe and Mail was able to speak with the former clerk of the Privy Council office, Mr. Michael Wernick, who said that public finger-pointing by senior servants is highly unusual. He cannot recall any other instance of such public disagreement. Is it an outlier? Yes. Suspensions without pay are also rare. It's a strong measure to suspend without pay while a process is underway and no conclusions have been reached. Usually disciplinary measures follow an investigation being completed, and suspension with pay is more common in the early stages, he said. It's also a very strong measure to suspend or permanently revoke a security clearance. It is tantamount to removing someone from that job and any other job that requires that level of clearance. It is not a common occurrence. Your decisions at the CBSA, as directed and delivered to the other ministries these two individuals have worked for, have destroyed their lives. And Canadians deserve an answer. Parliamentarians deserve an answer as to why due process was not provided to them, that very draconian measures were taken against them. So I'm going to be asking you a number of questions. Who did you speak with, ma'am, on suspending the 2 public servants on the 54 million ArriveCan app? You said it wasn't your decision, but clearly you participated in the ultimate recommendation that they be removed. Who did you speak with?
That's not accurate at all. I didn't speak to either of their deputy heads about the actions they were taking.
You received a preliminary report from investigators in your department. Did those investigators recommend suspension? No. Who did?
The decisions were taken by the deputy heads. I shared the preliminary statements of fact with their deputy heads.
Well, what did the preliminary statements of fact, How is it so damning against those two individuals that you felt it prudent to pass on to the other ministries?
It included, as the emails that you have received, information about engagements with consultants, a whole series of information that, as their deputy heads, I felt they had a right to have. They did not consult me on their actions.
Why did you claim that they were a national security risk?
I never claimed that.
Were you aware that that was the language that was used in their suspension letters?
I haven't seen their suspension letters.
Completely blind to that. You had no knowledge of that.
I'm not their deputy head. They don't work
And the
for me.
deputy head never spoke to you at all? They alone made that decision?
They alone made that
Is your
decision.
evidence today?
They alone made that decision.
Okay, so identify those deputy heads for us, please. Who are they?
Bob Hamilton is the commissioner of the CRA, and Stephen Lucas is the deputy head of Health Canada.
How many communications did you have with both of those individuals?
I let them know that I would be sharing pardon?
How did you let them know? Emails? Telephone call? Letter?
I called them, and I indicated
When did you call?
when.
When?
Soon after I received it. I received the package the 19th of December,
Follow up with an email?
possibly.
Okay, you'll provide this committee with any and all manners of communication to those two deputy heads surrounding the preliminary findings from your investigators in your ministry. You can do that?
And the
And you can have that to us within 2 weeks? Okay?
Yep.
Did they communicate back to you?
They told me after the fact the decision they had taken.
They communicated that they took the decision to suspend without pay.
They informed me that they had taken actions.
Communicated that to you in what manner?
In a phone call, as I recall.
Official, nothing, no email, no letter?
No
Just a
reason
phone
to
call?
inform me officially. They are the deputy heads of those
Right,
employees.
that we're taking the most drastic of
Can you wrap up,
remedies
Mr. Brock?
that we're taking the most drastic of remedies against these two whistleblowers who spoke truth to power, and they only communicated that via telephone.
The employees work for them.
Mr. O'Gorman, in your calendar, there are multiple visits to the address 80 Wellington. And while this building is on Wellington Street, it's not 80 Wellington. 80 Wellington is the Prime Minister's office. These visits are interspersed or spaced around your times appearing at ArriveCAN hearings for the Government Operations Committee. For example, before your appearance at the Government Operations Committee on the 24th of October in last year, you visited the Prime Minister's office at 2 p.m., then walked across the street and sat down to take questions. The next morning, you were back at the Prime Minister's office. Who did you meet with in these meetings?
I have not met with the Prime Minister. The Privy Council office is in that building. I would have been at 80 Wellington to attend meetings with colleagues in the Privy Council office.
So none of your meetings at 80 Wellington had any relation to the ArriveCAN scandal or your testimony at this committee?
No. I have spoken to colleagues in the Privy Council office about ArriveCAN. Certainly there's a big public profile to ArriveCAN. They've had questions, but you're linking specific meetings and specific appearances here that have no relation to one another. I have come to give this testimony free of putting anything by anybody else. So the suggestion that I would have been meeting with the Privy Council office in advance of this meeting is not accurate. My calendar shows many, many meetings at 80 Wellington.
You did meet with people at that office before this meeting, so it is accurate to suggest that. It's an assertion of fact. So you just said it's inaccurate to say that you met there before this meeting. You did, ma'am.
Not on ArriveCAN.
Okay. Well, it's certainly interesting that your appearances at the Privy Council office or the Prime Minister's office are directly around your appearances at this committee.
I think See many, many meetings at 80 Wellington around all sorts of other meetings.
You said you spoke to colleagues in the Privy Council office about this meeting. Did you speak about your testimony at this committee with folks at PCO?
I didn't say that I met with colleagues about this meeting, but I did indicate that I was coming. I indicated that I was coming, and I shared my opening remarks with them. They didn't, they acknowledged receipt.
On October 13th, 2022, there was a meeting in your calendar that was Procurement Services Canada and CBSA on ArriveCan, PSPC and CBSA ArriveCan. Did you attend that meeting?
Can you say the title of the meeting again?
October 13th, 2022, PSPC and CBSA ArriveCan. Did you attend the meeting?
I don't recollect if it was in my calendar. I likely did, but I don't recollect that meeting in particular.
Well, it seems that the meeting would have been important to your committee strategy because we have an email on October 21st where it stated, quote, both PSPC and CBSA push to have all departments do remarks if they can for time management and putting our narrative out there. So it seems like there was a time management strategy developed. It relates directly to your appearance at committee. Do you have any recollection of it now with that having been offered?
Sorry.
Would you be able to table for this committee? Would you be able to table for this committee the prep materials that you would have had, or a slide deck? Do you have the title of the slide deck on lessons learned? ArriveCan lessons learned. Are you familiar with that document?
I am.
Could you table that with the committee?
I believe if it's the one I'm thinking of, it was presented to the Treasury Board. But yes, I can.
You undertake to provide that to the committee? Thank you. The PCO in the documents that we reviewed also said that they wanted to review all documentation being requested by the committee. Was PCO involved with any of the redactions to the documents? CBSA was non-compliant with a legal order of this committee to provide full documents, and we want to know if PCO was involved in the restricting of the release of information that was lawfully requested by this standing committee.
CBSA makes redactions to its own documents.
So what was PCO's interest then in reviewing all of the documentation before it was being submitted to the committee?
Great. Thank you, Mr. Barrett. So, Ms. O'Gorman, two senior public servants involved in the ArriveCan affair, Mr. McDonald and Mr. Otano, provided highly detailed and critical testimony to this committee on November the 7th, 2023 about what happened in ArriveCan. They didn't toe the line. They were very critical of you directly, as well as of Mr. Doan, and indirectly, I think, of Minister Mendicino. My impression was that they did not intend to be critical in particular, but they simply provided direct and forthright answers to direct questions. And we would welcome that from others as well. But in any event, after their testimony, immediately after their testimony, it seems that you ordered an investigation related to their conduct. Is that correct? No. You didn't order any investigation after their testimony? Their dismissal letters say that on November 27th, 2023, they were made aware of investigation by the Canadian Border Services Agency. Were they made aware of an investigation on November 27th, 2023?
So in the course of conducting an investigation, at some point, individuals, if there are allegations against them, are formally informed of those allegations. So I think
they were
informed.
They were informed of that they were the subject of an investigation regarding serious allegations of misconduct, allegedly. They were informed of that on November 27th, suspiciously, just a few weeks after their testimony before this committee. So are you claiming that that information was related to investigation that was actually launched prior to their testimony?
It was.
Well, when was that investigation launched?
There's one investigation that was launched in November of 2022.
So, but then they were informed of what? The expansion of that investigation, a part of that investigation, or they were simply informed that they were the subject of particular complaints on November 27, 2023?
My understanding is they were informed of the allegations against them. So there was the information.
Were these new allegations or allegations that had been longstanding?
So Bottler AI presented allegations to the agency. The investigation that has been followed is consistent with any investigation undertaken by CBSA. And
Ma'am, I'd like direct responses here. What I'm trying to understand is that a couple weeks after their appearance before this committee, they were informed of serious investigation into their own conduct. You're telling us that it just so happened that there were new revelations related to an ongoing investigation.
I haven't said there's new revelations. The investigation.
But then why were they only told of this on November 27th? Was information simply kept from them for a long time? Or, because you'd have to agree the timing is a little bit odd, isn't it?
I don't agree with that. The
Really?
investigation has been carried out consistent with our investigations. I have not spoken to the investigators. The process is such that when
Okay, ma'am. So
are subject
pure
to-
coincidence. They come on November 7th. They are very critical of you personally. And then 2 weeks later, slightly more, they are told that they are under a cloud of investigation, and subsequently you send a preliminary finding of fact to their bosses, which leads to them both being suspended without pay, all in a few months' succession after their appearance at this testimony. They are their legal support is withdrawn as a result of a decision you made, which you claim is in keeping with Treasury Board guidelines. All of this in weeks and months immediately after they came and criticized you at this committee. And you're telling us that had nothing, that's pure coincidence. Is that what you're telling us?
Is the suggestion that I'm interfering in the investigation? Because there is no information to support that.
Ma'am, I'm pointing out the timeline. But here's what I would like you to do. I'd like you to provide the preliminary statement of fact that you provided to their superiors to this committee within 48 hours. Will you undertake to do that?
I'll say two things.
No. Will you provide that document?
The preliminary statement of fact
Will you provide that document,
is a
ma'am?
point in time.
Will you
and
provide that
I'm conscious
document?
of my obligation.
No, I'm asking you a question.
Act. And right now,
You know, ma'am, you talk about your concern about the integrity of the investigation, but you have told this committee, you've chosen to publicly testify that you believe that Mr. Utano and Mr. McDonald have behaved inappropriately. You have said that on the record at the same time as claiming you don't want to compromise the investigation. And you made the decision to send those letters immediately after they gave testimony at this committee critical of you. So if you won't answer my question, I hope the committee will agree with me to order the production of that preliminary statement of fact that you sent to the superiors of Mr. McDonald and Mr. Utano, and I'd put it to the committee that we order the production of those documents within 48 hours. That's not a question. That's to the chair.
Okay,
because I think I'm out of time.
And we are, but I will ask colleagues, are we fine? Mr. Shawari, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, the same comment as I did yesterday with Mr. Gorjon. If we can have it in writing, both official languages, I would appreciate that. And as usual, we always support any type of production of document.
Sorry, I've stated it clearly. Je peux dire le même en français.
I can say the same in French. We have interpretation services.
Preliminary statement of fact that Ms. O'Gorman sent to the direct bosses of Mr. McDonald, Mr. Utano, that led to their suspension. I'm requesting that the committee order the production of those documents.
I'm going to interrupt because we're out of time. We're going to try and get that translated and sent around, and perhaps we can address it in a bit later in the meeting. So we'll get the translation sent around to everyone. If you could just provide and separate to our clerk exactly what you're looking for so we can move forward on that.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Johns. Mr. Please.
A hard time reconciling the fact that you said you were at the Prime Minister's department, but it wasn't about ArriveCan, but it was immediately before your appearance here, and when pressed in my questions to you, you said that you focus grouped your opening remarks to your colleagues who work in the Prime Minister's department at that allegedly unrelated meeting. I find it hard to believe. I think Canadians would find that hard to believe. Who was there from the Prime Minister's office at that meeting?
I've not met with anybody from the Prime Minister's office.
My question was, who was at that meeting who works in the Prime Minister's office?
If you mean the building, I was meeting with Privy Council office officials.
My question is very clear. You were at a meeting. It's in your calendar. You acknowledged that you were at the meeting. Was there anyone from the Prime Minister's office in attendance at that meeting? There was no one. Okay, so it was just PCO that you focus grouped your remarks for this committee with.
Focus group, I provided them.
On page 180 of the emails that you provided to this committee, it talks about time management strategy for your appearance before this committee, and that PCO wanted to review all the documentation being requested by this committee, something else that you seem unaware of. So you're taking meetings immediately before and immediately after your appearance at this committee with the Prime Minister's department, PCO. They're reviewing all of the documentation that's coming from your office, your department, which illegally refused document production orders of this committee. And you're telling us that all of these meetings at PCO that are happening directly around your appearances at this committee are unrelated, and though you do acknowledge that you did circulate your opening remarks in advance, but there was no discussion at this allegedly unrelated meeting. Do I understand that correctly?
I'm not even sure where to begin to answer that. So I've attended meetings at...
The best place to start.
Absolutely.
And that'd be a wonderful change.
I have been absolutely honest and forthright with this committee. So the meeting you're asking about preceded my previous appearance at OGO? Is that the meeting?
Sure, I'm not getting an answer. I'll give the rest of my time to my colleague.
Mr. Gorman, given the extremely seriousness of this matter, with both the RCMP and the Auditor General now investigating this boondoggle of the ArriveCan app procurement and the $54 million cost, you surely, as the president of the CBSA, would be keeping your minister, Dominic LeBlanc, the Minister of Public Safety, fully apprised of all developments. Is that correct?
I informed the minister that I had received preliminary statements of fact that were of concern, and that I was providing them to the deputy heads.
Did you provide Minister LeBlanc with a copy of those findings?
No.
Why not?
I didn't think that he didn't ask for it.
How many meetings have you had with Minister LeBlanc with respect to this investigation?
We've had no meetings. I called him to inform him.
How many calls have you had with him?
On the one call.
How many emails have you shared with Dominic LeBlanc?
I sent him one email.
Previous to Dominic LeBlanc was Marco Mendicino in that role as the Minister of Public Safety. Did you communicate with him as well?
I called him to inform him of the allegations I received.
And his response was?
He was concerned with the nature of them. He expressed his expectation that I would shore up any gaps, and informed me that I should keep him apprised if there were any developments that he needed to be aware of.
All your communications, were they via telephone or email?
I don't recall emailing the previous minister. I may have.
You will look back at your email chain with respect to both ministers, and you'll provide copies to this committee within 7 days. Is that okay? Now, last question. Lying before this committee has become a serious problem with a number of witnesses. It's almost a culture of lying and deceit. Although you've not been sworn to tell the truth, there's a presumption you are telling the truth when you appear at committee. Mr. McDonald, the now suspended public servant over the ArriveCan app, said that you lied, specifically targeting you for mistruths that you provided to committee this past fall. Have you told the committee the truth and nothing but the truth today?
I have told the committee the answers to the questions truthfully and to the best of my recollection.
Thank you, Mr. Brock.